Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story about why you shouldn't drive under the influence of alcohol. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. And our first story. The story of Tiny D. McGee and how he lost/will lose his license, his vehicle, and his business. This story takes us back to September. Now, I'm a nice guy, a very nice guy. I tell people my phone is always on, and I usually get at least 1 or 2 calls a week for emergencies. One of my friends proceeded to call me at around midnight for a ride from the bar. Her friends left without her, and she was stranded. While I'm waiting for her in the parking lot, I'm introduced to Micro D. McGee in an unpleasant way. I see this guy walk out of the bar wearing a sailor hat and go into his jacked-up truck, raised cab, big A tires, suspension, and so forth. I name him Micro D. McGee due to the fake stereotype of big truck means overcompensation and because he's a complete A. You see, he gets into his truck and proceeds to back up into my parked vehicle on the driver's side, and then he starts to drive away. What? Did he not feel when he smoked my car? Anyways, I start to chase after him and take photos of his license plate and truck so I have his info in case he gets away. He sees the flash and pulls over 3 blocks later. I get his info in the form of a business card. Turns out he owns his own construction business. We go our own separate ways. I call him a few days later and he wants me to just go to his friend's repair shop and he'll pay for it. Hell no, I'm going through my insurance. I don't want to get effed over for these repairs. So I fill out the forms and bring my car in. They take photos, my statement, and that's it. Now we skip forward 2 months. I still haven't had the repair done. I'm going to wait until Christmas when I can afford to be out of commission for a few days. I get a call from my insurance. Turns out he's denying it ever happened now. So I have to go meet up at the insurance agency with him at the same time with our vehicles for them to take more photos and measurements. I get a call the day of the meeting. Turns out he can't make it. Nice of him to cancel an hour before the meeting. Jerk. I think he's doing this to avoid getting caught. We're scheduled for 2 weeks later. He skips this one again. Reschedule for another 2 weeks and he misses it again. The insurance agent and I are complaining about this T, and I get some nice information. Turns out he was driving on a suspended license. I can only assume from a DUI or too many collisions and tickets. Oh, I'm going to use this against him. So I go to the bar and view the footage at the time he hit me, and 15 minutes before he hit me. Remember that sailor hat? Yeah, that effed him over too. He's a candle in the night at the bar, too easy to find. I get proof of him backing up into me and a video of him having a drink. Bam! Drinking and driving. Did I mention my state has a zero-tolerance policy? Next, I tell the cops to show up at the meeting place and to wait, so we go to the 4th and final meetup, where if he didn't make it, they'd rule in my favor and fine him. He shows up, they rule in my favor, the paint's still on his car, and he doesn't even look at me the entire time and drives away as quick as we're done. Bam! Pulled over as he drives out, gets an $800 fine for driving without a license. I also give them the video footage. Ooh, if you didn't have a DUI before, you do now. And now I drive past his business a few days later, still driving his truck and without a license. So I call the cops again and laugh on my merry way. And I'm going to call the cops every time I see his vehicle there. That's a F of a fine he's going to get. Eventually his vehicle will be seized, and because he can't drive, he's not going to be able to go to his clients. He owns a construction company. He's the only employee, so transportation is entirely dependent on him. Can't drive to clients, can't make money, can't pay the multiple fines I'm giving you. Your business is going to go under. Don't drink and drive. Don't deny an accident you're clearly at fault for. And our second story. Train my replacement in a matter of hours? I don't think that's going to work out well for you. I was a dispatcher for a plumbing/HVAC/basement waterproofing company, but I was more of a coordinator. I handled customer bookings, scheduling some parts ordering, dispatching, etc. As I used to say, I have more hats than a hat rack. Now, my techs had their own tools, and I did my work on the computer. I kept bugging the boss for a better computer, and he never got me one, so I built a system at my own expense and brought it into the office. My techs had personal tools, so this was mine. As a matter of fact, 10 years later, it's the system I'm typing on now. It has a 4-core processor and a graphics card capable of supporting 4 monitors. To give you a better idea of how long ago this was, I paid $350 for a 60-gig SSD. I used 1 monitor for the dispatch software, 1 monitor for Google Maps with traffic overlay, 1 monitor for Outlook, and 1 monitor for QuickBooks to issue invoices and purchase orders. When I gave notice, my boss, the owner, and I agreed on 3 weeks' notice as an exit strategy. Unknown to me, the owner was convinced I was bluffing and was just hunting for a raise. He refused to hire a replacement. My boss was more of a field supervisor. The owner handled the office and admin. Finally, the day before my last day at 2 p.m., I was introduced to the new hire. Seriously? You intend to have me train a guy for a complicated, pivotal role in a few hours? I was on a 44-hour schedule, 10 hours Monday through Thursday, and Friday I was off at 11 a.m. I said my goodbyes, and at 11 a.m. began dismantling my computer. First thing I did was format the hard drive as I told them I was going to do. Fortunately for them, the data was all backed up on the server, except for what had transpired that morning, despite my repeated warnings to trigger a backup into the server at 11 a.m. The owner came out in a bit of a panic when he saw me taking apart the computer, as he had forgotten that it was me that owned it, and now his dispatch station had no computer. He asked if I could leave the computer behind, and I declined. He set my replacement up on an unused antique computer in a cubicle. It had a effing CRT monitor, was slow as molasses. The job was hard enough with 4 screens. I can't imagine doing it with 1. This guy wasn't a dummy, but there's no way I could have trained him in a few hours. He had the bare bones of the processes, and that's it. By noon, I was out the door. My boss spent the remainder of the day and most of the next week in the field, leaving the owner to deal with the fallout. And it was legendary. Nobody could handle it. The replacement quit, just never showed up on the Tuesday, and nobody else in the office could do what I was doing. He dumped PO generation into accounting, which pissed them off with the extra workload. He tried to handle scheduling and dispatching himself, and pissed off a lot of the techs. He stuck one of the CSRs into training for the role, and she wasn't the brightest bulb in the chandelier. The best part? I used to handle after hours on call, and since there was nobody with enough experience, the owner had to answer his phone at all hours of the night, 7 days a week. That's when the exodus started. Over the next few weeks, many of the good techs bailed. Jobs were screwed up. I heard that he had 2 basement waterproofing jobs, each worth 5 figures, double booked. The company hit the wall hard. How do I know? About 3 years ago, I reached out to my boss on LinkedIn, and he'd moved on to another employer. He offered me a job, and I took it. We get along famously, and he's told me all kinds of stories about the crap that hit the fan when I left. And all they had to do was buy a new computer and give me enough time to get the new guy in the groove. And our last story. Don't pay me? Get arrested on your birthday. About 2 or 3 years back, I got in touch with someone who wanted me to do some work for him. I'm a designer, I do contract work, but up until now, I'd never had a contract I asked people to sign. Mistake number 1. Anyway, I worked with this person over the course of 6 months or so. I initially quoted him an amount for what he asked for. He didn't want to pay that much, so we agreed on a smaller scope. Afterwards, he started asking for constant changes. I did that, tacking on time to the project as we went. Mistake number 2. The entire time the project is going on, he's telling me how much he loves my work. Everything looks great. It looks spectacular, exactly what he wanted. End of the project rolls around, and I've made a small tweak to see what he thinks. It'd make things easier to build, cheaper, etc. I send him the bill for my work, which was for about $1,500. He freaks at me, telling me that I've been purposefully doing things wrong the entire time to pad the time required, seemingly forgetting the constant stream of praise he's been sending me. Tells me he refuses to pay and that I've been untrustworthy the entire time. Says that the last tweak I made was wholly unasked for and completely away from the project specs, again saying that I'd been doing this on purpose. Flabbergasted, I offered to change it back for free and apologize for the confusion. No response. I talk with a lawyer friend of mine, and he advises me to offer an olive branch if I want to take it to court, so I offer to cut the bill from $1,500 to about $500 and give him everything I'd made so far as a peace offering. No response. After about 6 months, I go to small claims and file a report. I spent weeks agonizing over my case. I collected everything, discussions, images, etc., and laid it into a timeline. I go to the hearing and he doesn't show. The court says there needs to be another hearing to give him another chance. Another month goes by and he's a no-show. Now he's officially in contempt of court and I have won the case. But in order to get him into court, I need to get a constable to bring him in. But in order to get him into court, I need to get a constable to bring him in. That's like $400 and I don't have the money at the time. About 6 months pass, I get a new job and can afford the constable. I ring one up and give him the guy's address that was on his business card and what was registered for his company. The first week, they stake it out. Does he drive a BMW? I'm not sure. Turns out he does, but they weren't sure if the guy was there or not. 2 weeks pass, I get the phone call. We've got him. Come in. I show up to the court and text the constable. I spot them through the doors to another room and see the dude is sitting there. Nice. The constable comes out, tells me how things are going to go down. He takes me and the guy into a side room and basically explains how, since I won the judgment, he has to pay me. He gets the guy to write a check to me, hands it to the constable, and he goes, on second thought, no, I don't want to pay him. I want to talk to the judge first. Constable says, okay. We go into the courtroom, first case up, we stand in front of the judge. The guy starts trying to say, I don't think he deserves the money, didn't do the work, I don't want to pay him. Judge basically says, yeah, but you didn't show up to the case, you lost. Guy tries to argue with the judge and gets immediately shut down. Constable walks over to hand me the check, case dismissed. On the way out, the constable jokes with the guy, well, I guess you can go back to your birthday now. Guy says, yeah, I even have a cake and everything, trying to make light of it, but he's PO'd. We leave, not even looking at one another, though he held the door for me as I stepped out. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.